Solving for special triangles. So in this video, we're going to go over the 30, 60, 90 triangle and the 45, 45, 90 triangle. So in the 30, 60, 90 theorem, in a triangle that is a 30, 60, 90 triangle, the hypotenuse length is 2 times the length of the shorter leg, and the longer leg's length is the square root of 3 times the length of the shorter leg. So what does that really mean? So let's go ahead and draw this triangle. So a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So we have our 90. This is going to be our 30, and this is going to be our 60. The 30 is because, right, this one's a shorter angle because this is the shorter side. So let's go ahead and just put x here for the shorter side. So if we look at the hypotenuse length, it's 2 times the length of the shorter leg. So that means 2x. That indicates 2 times x. So that's the hypotenuse. So whatever x is, it could be 2, then the hypotenuse is 4. Or if it's 5, then the hypotenuse would be 10, right? So that's the relationship. And then the longer leg's length is, right, the square root of 3 times the length of the shorter leg. So this is our shorter leg, right? And then if it's the square root of 3, so we could just go the square root of 3x. Or you can also show it as x times the square root of 3. Either way, these mean the same thing. All it means is we're multiplying x times the square root of 3. So that's how we can solve for things. So if we know one length, we can go ahead and solve for the others based upon this relationship here. But what about if we have a triangle that's 45, 45, 90, right? So in those situations, if a triangle, right, so let's go ahead and draw this. You can just write this out, 45, 45, and 90. So that means the length of the legs are the same. So these sides are going to be the same. So let's just go ahead and write x and x. So those are equal. Now the hypotenuse length is the square root of 2 times the length of the leg. Either one, right? It's the same one. So it's going to be x times the square root of 2. Remember, you can write the square root of 2x. Either way, it just indicates to us that x times the square root of 2 is equal to the length of the hypotenuse. So now let's do some examples. So example 1, we have a triangular gusset is being used for a project. If the gusset's a 45, 45, 90 triangle with the legs being 4 inches long, what is the length of the hypotenuse? So let's go ahead and write this out. So if we have, right, this is 45, 45, and this is 90. And we're saying that the length of the legs is 4. So this is 4 and that is 4. So what is the hypotenuse? So that's what we're solving for. Well, if we look at this triangle, right, all we have to do is then just multiply x, which is equal to 4, right? And then we just have to multiply it by the square root of 2 in order to get the hypotenuse. So the hypotenuse is equal to 4 times the square root of 2. So let's get our calculators out. So 4 times the square root of 2. So we're going to go 2 and then take the square root of it. And that is equal, right, the square root of 2 is equal to 1.41 and continues on. So let's just go equals. So that is equal to 5.65, which we can go 5.66. And that's inches. So that's the length of the hypotenuse. Sometimes you'll see it just like this, where maybe they can say you can leave in the square root. And this is also, these are equal, right? So this is the equal sign. So you could write 4 times the square root of 2, or you can also just write 5.66. Now let's do the next example. Example 2. A triangular gusset is being used for a project. And it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And the shortest leg is 5 inches. What's the length of the longer leg and the hypotenuse? So if we were to, just draw. So the shortest leg, at the beginning we said is x. Now the square root of 3 times x is the longer leg, and then 2x is the hypotenuse. So if we're trying to solve for the hypotenuse, we just know if x is equal to 5, then 2x, so 2 times 5, which is equal to 10. So the hypotenuse is 10 inches. And then if we were to find the longer leg, this would be the square root of 3 times 5. So that's 5 times the square root of 3, or 5 times, that's how we usually say it. Even though it's 5 right by the square root of 3, it's really understood it's 5 times the square root of 3. So if we go 5 times the square root of 3, we get 8.66. So this is equal to 8.66 inches. So now we have solved for both sides of the legs, as we knew what x was. So that was helpful in order to solve for the other ones. So now let's go and look at another example. So example 3. If there's a 30, 60, 90 triangle with the longest leg being 4 inches, what's the length of the shorter leg in the hypotenuse? So this time we know the longest leg, which is 4 inches. And then now we're solving for the shorter leg in the hypotenuse. So what do we know? Well, we know x, the square root of 3 times x, and then 2x. So that's our triangle. So we know the longest leg, if that's 4, which is equal to the square root of 3 times x. So x is, the shorter leg length. Whatever that is times the square root of 3 is equal to 4. So if we were to solve for the shorter leg, we actually just, all we have to do is go ahead and divide by the square root of 3 on both sides. So what do we get? So we get x is equal to 4 divided the square root of 3. So let's get our calculators out. So 4 divided by 3, we'll take the square root of it. And what do we get? Well, we get 2.31. So if we were to go right here, we can go ahead and put the shorter leg, because we solved for x. This is the shorter leg. Now, what do we know about the shorter leg and the hypotenuse? Well, 2 times the shorter leg is equal to the hypotenuse. So 2 times this 2.31, which is equal to 4.62. So we get the hypotenuse is equal to 4.62 inches, and then the shorter leg is 2.31 inches. Now let's do one more example. So example 4, if there's a 45, 45, 90 triangle with a hypotenuse that's 2.5 inches, what's the length of the 2 legs? So first, let's go ahead and draw just our standard. So if we have this side being just x, well, the hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times x. Now, in this example, what do we know? Well, we know the hypotenuse is 2.5. So if we know what the hypotenuse is, what we need to do is then, so this 2 square root of 2x is equal to 2.5. So in order to solve for x, which is just the side, all we have to do is take the square root of 2 on both sides. Now we just get x on the left, because if we divide by the number that it is, this is just equal to 1. Now 2.5 divided by the square root of 2. So 2.5 divided by 2, but we'll take the square root of that, which is equal to 1.77. And this is in inches.